Hey y'all, good evening. This is Tonetta. Welcome to the video today. Today I'm talking about my observation from something that came up in the caregiver support group today that I facilitated. And if you all didn't know, I facilitate 11 of these groups a month, talking to caregivers about their loved one and, of course, trying to coach them on, of course, self-care, how to feeling and just feeling better in general by the time that they leave the group. So, and just giving them a safe space to, of course, speak and to open up and to of course, save us on the mind when it comes to caregiving. But let me go ahead and get into it, y'all. The one thing I noticed, I didn't just notice it today, but I have noticed it, of course, many a times and across the board. When it comes to end of life and working with caregivers and just people, not just caregivers, but actually people in general. Because I know that when it comes to end of life and talking about death and that kind of thing is very hard, not just for me. I mean, it's hard for me too, but I have, of course, some experience with death a lot. I put it that way. So I can talk about it a little bit easier because I've been through it several times with different loved ones. But for many, of course, I know that, like I said, for me included, for everybody, it's hard to talk about death and dying and seeing your loved one pass away before your eyes. I guess I put it that way. And like I said, something that came up today was we were just talking about, of course, the end of life and what it meant to be a caregiver for someone who you know that's going to be dwindling away in front of your eyes and what that's going to look like. A lot of us, of course, I have been through that situation several times. So I know, of course, kind of what to expect, what it's going to look like and all those types of things. That's just because I have experience with it. But for but for a lot of people, a lot of folks have not had that kind of experience yet to kind of know how things would go at the end of life. But the one thing I want to talk about and want to kind of get out in this video today is that we have to talk about it, y'all. There's a lot of people, whether it's me as a social worker or just a person in general, because I have some experience with being bedside next to somebody who's passing away and those types of things. People like me, like different helpers, social workers, some teachers, nurses, doctors, that kind of thing. We have to actually talk about it, not just, of course, be afraid to talk about it, be afraid to say anything about death. We all know that at some point, I know that I'm going to die at some point too. Well, I guess I can't say we all don't know how. We don't know how we're going to die, but of course, we all know that we're going to die at some point. And we know that at some point, we're going to be experiencing a death of someone in our family or a close loved one, a friend, or even a coworker. And of course, like I said, in order for us to, what I know of, what I know is that in order for us to, of course, to feel more comfortable talking about death and that kind of thing, is that we actually have to have those hard conversations about it. What it looks like, what's going to happen. We can't judge everybody. We don't know how it's going to happen in every single person's life. But when you're dealing with, like the caregivers I deal with, they're dealing with somebody, a lot of them are, that have memory loss. Some may have had strokes. Some may have other issues, cancer, that kind of thing. Some of those illnesses you can kind of judge about how it might look at the end of life. And I know we did talk about, of course, hospice and palliative care programs earlier as well, because those are some programs that can definitely help you through this transition. And of course, also death doulas. One of my coworkers that left that left and transitioned out of my current job, she was a death doula or got certified as a death doula. So like I said, definitely there are people that can help, but we still have to be okay to, of course, bring up the conversation. And like I said, I know it's hard to bring up that conversation. I'm not saying that. I can bring it up because I have the experience and because I've been through it. And because, of course, I'm a social worker. That's what I'm trained to do. I put it that way. And of course, the experiences definitely help 100%. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But like I said, definitely we cannot be afraid to, of course, bring it up, knowing that we're dealing with the loved one or even parents that, of course, nearing end of life. And we know people are getting older and that kind of thing. Like I said, we have to, at some point, I know that I had to, of course, still educate myself more about things. I know I had to speak up and talk about things, even though they were scary to talk about, even with my own mom when she was in hospice. Scared to ask about how this is going to look, how things are going to go, why she's not eating, all these types of things. Those kind of things happening in their life. And like I said, in order for us to know what's going on with our loved one, we have to equip ourselves with that kind of information. Like I said, it's not going to be in everybody's situation, because I know there's some people, of course, killed in accidents or a plane crash or something like that goes on, and it happens suddenly. But for those who are watching the process happen right in front of their eyes, like I said, a lot of my caregivers, are probably like 90%, are caring for someone who have memory loss, dementia, Alzheimer's, Lewy body dementia, all those types of things. And like I said, you are watching somebody dwindle down from what they were, the smart professor or the teacher or the nurse or the doctor or that kind of thing, on down to not even knowing who they are, what their name is, and who you are. And that is definitely hard to watch. And of course, seeing those processes, the eating may stop, or they may not know what the food is, or they can't digest the food and all that kind of stuff anymore. Like I said, we definitely have to know kind of what the process looks like, so we won't be caught off guard when it starts to happen. And I know I'm saying that. I know I'm sound like I'm probably telling y'all what to do and that kind of thing, but I just know from my own experience, when I dealt with this with my mom, I watched my father-in-law pass away, right, of course, in the hospital bed, right in front of me. I've seen others as well. And like I said, because I went through those experiences, I kind of knew what it may look like, how the last breath may look or feel, that type of thing as well. Like I said, I definitely had to, of course, ask questions to of the doctors, of the hospice staff, so I can know kind of what to expect, so I won't be caught off guard, like, oh my God, what is going on, and nervous and this kind of thing, and breaking. Of course, I broke down. Everybody's going to cry and break down and that kind of thing. That is normal. But what I'm talking about is just the education around knowing what things look like when it comes to end of life, and not being afraid to, of course, ask those questions, so that you can, of course, you can't prepare yourself 100%, but you can prepare yourself a little bit when it comes to that. But like I said, we have to be able to have those hard conversations. I know death is a conversation that we always want to sweep up under the carpet. Back in the day, I saw death, yes, but I didn't talk about it either like that. Of course, a lot of folks around me, of course, uncomfortable talking about it. I was too. Now I can talk about it with ease because, of course, like I said, I've been through a lot of experiences. I facilitate caregiver support groups and all those kind of things, and coach them through these processes too. And like I said, definitely, I just hope that you all get from this video, especially if you're caregiving for somebody, or even if you're not, even if you, like I said, live with or take care of your elderly parents and that kind of thing. You know that they're getting up in age. So of course we have to start preparing ourselves for some type of death to happen at some point. I guess I put it that way. It's not going to be today. It's not going to be 15, never know, 15 years from now, whenever it's going to be, just so we can know that, like, the basics, what to expect, what it may look like, what the longevity of certain illnesses are. Like I said, that's just something that I know now. Back in the day, no, I did not know that, especially when I was dealing with my mom and helping. Of course, my grandmother was the main caretaker of her. I was in college at the time. I was at like late teens, early 20s. So I was still in college, but of course, every moment I got, I was out there spending the night trying to help take care of her, even though I had no idea what the hell I was doing. But my grandmother told me what to do, that kind of thing. I just followed directions, and of course, followed what the hospice staff said and that kind of thing. Of course, I got it at some point, of course, but like I said, it is definitely hard to see a loved one, of course, like I said, slipping into that in their life and knowing that they won't be here any longer after several weeks or several months or whatever it is. That is very hard to see and very hard to witness. Like I said, I just hope that this video kind of sheds some light on some things that you may want to think about when it comes to caring for your loved one. Like I said, nobody wants to think about death. Nobody wants to talk about it. But in order for us to, of course, get through the process or go through the process, we have to, of course, start talking about it, y'all. Unfortunately, that is something we plan for. Our weddings, we plan for events, we plan for parties, we plan for trips. But death, of course, a lot of us, of course, I'm guilty of that too, not planning for the whole process at all. Know that it's going to happen. We ain't got the burial plans done. We ain't got life insurance. We don't have anything in wills. We don't have all the documents. We have to start being smarter about that too, y'all. And like I said, I had to start being smarter about that too. That's why I'm here to tell y'all, like I said, the same things I've been through, I witnessed. I just want to make sure that y'all are prepared as much as you can be. Nobody can be 100%. For all the deaths I've seen, I was not prepared 100%, but I knew a little bit of something. And I knew, of course, to ask questions if I didn't understand something, or if something was going on that I didn't know why my mom was reacting this way, or why my father-in-law was having these issues, all those types of things. I had to, of course, I forced myself to ask those questions. I may not want to hear those answers at all. I can tell you that. But like I said, in order for me to, of course, or the kind of person I am, to, of course, feel more comfortable, to, of course, be around somebody who's near the end of life or at that end of life point where their breathing is really labored and you don't know if it's going to be today or tomorrow. I've been there too. So like I said, definitely just knowing some of the basics and just asking those questions, just having the conversation, even if it's a conversation, just talking about what you may want at your own end of life, whether you want a funeral, whether you want cremation, just the basic things that we sometimes, of course, neglect because we don't want to talk about it. We don't even want to think about it. Like I said, I know it's definitely hard to do. Let me know in the comments if you all, if you have if you're scared to talk about death and what that number one fear for you is. So I can, of course, answer some of your questions or give you some helpful tips or so that I can just give you some support of what you're going through right now. I guess I put it that way, especially if you're in the process, because I know that I do have some caregivers or people who are caregiving on my page, of course, listening and that kind of thing as well. So that, like I said, let me know in the comments, what's the hardest thing for you when it comes to talking about death or even bringing up the conversation about death? And it could just be just that as well. Like I said, definitely let me know. Because like I said, I definitely want to give you some support or offer some tips or some suggestions or information you can go find to find the answers that you need and that kind of thing as well. Like I said, I want to see y'all get through this process too. I know it's hard. Like I said, I definitely did not want to go through this when I was 20, 21 years old and see my mother passed away. I did not want to go through that at all. Like I said, we have no choice in these situations. Unless the person passes away suddenly, we have no choice in these situations but to go through the process. It's definitely a process that nobody wants to face and I didn't want to face it. You don't even want to see it. It hurts. It definitely does. I can't tell you how many nights I've cried or that kind of thing when I was going through this process. It's hard. I was the only child. It's very hard. But like I said, we can, of course, like I'm telling you now, we can, of course, get through this with just equipping ourselves with some basic knowledge and some basic things to look for and just to have the conversation about, like I said, the end of life and death and dying and that kind of thing. It definitely helps you in some ways, like I said, when you're going through the process. So like I said, definitely let me know in the comments if you're caregiving for somebody or if you just have a hard time talking about the end of life. Let me know what the hardest thing is for you to talk about or what's the biggest fear that you have. And like I said, leave it in the comments if you feel comfortable. If not, you can DM me. That's fine as well. And like I said, I just want to just offer some helpful tips along the way just to help you get through this as smooth as you can. I can't say it's easy. It's not going to be easy at all. But of course, as smooth as you can with a little bit of knowledge. So like I said, y'all, I just wanted to share this today because this is something that I noticed today talking in the support groups about. And it just kept coming up from almost everybody in the room. And like I said, I know this is not just for them. It's for all y'all too. I know there's others out there who need this kind of information, education, or just this pep talk that I'm talking about right now. Just to kind of put you in the mind frame, like, yes, I need to talk to my family about death and dying. I haven't even told my kids what I wanted. When that time comes for me, I know it's scary. I know it's scary. But like I said, at some point, y'all, we have to talk about it. And like I said, I hope that this video will encourage you to, of course, talk about it as well, even if it's the basic things, getting life insurance, getting a will, getting your powers of attorney in order, all those types of things. Those are some basic things that you can still talk about now that can help the process along too. So you can already have all the things that you want done and your family don't have to fight over it all. Even if that's the only thing that you do. Like I said, that will definitely help, and I'm here to support you, y'all. So like I said, let me know in the comments what's the biggest fear that you have about death and dying. Let me know, like I said, so I can offer some support to you. So y'all, peace out. Have a great evening. Like I said, this is on my mind today, and I definitely want to share it because I know those caregivers in that group today were not the only ones who are facing this or going through this or having a hard time talking about the end of life. And like I said, y'all, I hope that this helps somebody today. I hope that it helps whenever you watch this video. So like I said, you can DM me or leave it in the comments what your biggest fear is talking about in your life, and I can offer some suggestions and some support to you. So if you want that, you don't have to take it, but if you want it. So like I said, y'all, I'll talk to y'all in the next video. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out, y'all, and have a great, great evening.